morning. Welcome to our channel, Transcending Consciousness. I'm Timothy.
And KC.
So for this episode, we plan to discuss the topic will be Rediscovering God. So I think our first part of discussion is the current view of God, especially in the Philippine setting. So in our country, we are predominantly Catholic, and a great majority of the non-Catholics are also Christian. So our view of God is more related to the Christian view of who God is and what constitute the qualities of God. So Casey, do you have anything to add?
When I was still small, when I was a child, the way I see God is like an old man with a white beard, sitting on a throne somewhere up there on the clouds, and an angry expression. So that was how I imagined God before. This angry God, judgmental God, judging the things that we did on earth. It's good or it's bad, or granting our prayers. Sometimes granting our prayers, and most of the time, no, maybe some other time, on God's time. So that was my view when I was. That was what our schools, our religion. That's what they are teaching us.
So similarly with KC, I've grown up as Catholic, so my view of that is similar in that we ascribe the view about God to what is written in the Bible. So corollary to this, we would like to discuss some qualities of God illustrated in the Bible, namely the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament God. So we know that the Old Testament God wherein some people would call this God as monster God, because the God portrayed in the Old Testament is an angry, judgmental God who, if he doesn't like what you're doing, he can just smite you, kill you, or send a plague over to your place. And also this God is at the same time also a jealous God, which is, similarly could punish you if you don't worship only Him, and if you ignore Him, then He will also place His anger in you. So that is the view of the Old Testament law.
And unfortunately, some of us still believe in that kind of God. They ask why their lives are like this, or why they are suffering. Sometimes they get angry to this judgmental God, and those people, because of their anger, because of their hurts and sufferings, they turn away from the church, from the Catholic Church or from other religious institutions. So yeah, some people still believe that if they did something really bad, they are afraid of being thrown into hell as punishment by this judgmental God.
So before we go to the New Testament view of God, I would just like to reiterate that this view of God is actually based on what the current consciousness of the people at the time. So the people at the time with a low level of consciousness, so they can only understand God in the way of fearing God, fearing His power, fearing His might. And at the same time, if you notice, this God is actually a reflection of human qualities. So aside from this Old Testament that we can see, like many of the Greek mythology gods, the Norse mythology gods, they are very powerful beings with also with an inflated ego because they have certain human qualities that actually, as we know God now, does not have this egoistic personality. But in the past, both in the Old Testament and the old religions in Greece or in Norway, they portray the gods with this certain human qualities.
And take note, guys, as Tim mentioned, this idea of God was based on the level of consciousness of the people more than 2,000 years ago, where their current understanding is very different from ours. For example, they have no concepts of energy at that time, or cell phone, even cell phone, of automobiles, okay? And like you said, it is based on human traits. Because why? Because our physical senses are very limited only to a certain range, okay? Our sight is limited to the visible light spectrum only, so what we can only see. And since the real God, the transcending God, the infinite transcending, which we cannot really see with our eyes, how can you describe someone you don't even know? So they base their understanding of God based on other human beings, the characteristics of other human beings. Only what they see from others. Oh, maybe God is like this, a powerful being, like a king. At that time, their kings are very jealous. They are very judgmental. They can kill anyone whom they like. So they place that idea of God on other people, which is that idea is also a graven image of God. It is not based on reality.
So let's go on to the New Testament of God. So actually, with the coming of Jesus, Jesus portrayed God as a loving Father, as a benevolent God in the sky, no longer this angry, judgmental God portrayed in the Old Testament. So we see here that the raising of consciousness of the people made it possible for Jesus to give us this view of God, which is in itself is actually not the highest view of God at the time. At the time, it's already a great leap to the very angry and judgmental God.
Yes. Also, in the Old Testament, the people when they experience earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, they view that as the gods being angry at them. So they offered human sacrifices to appease those angry gods. But when during the time of Jesus, they progressed a little, they now offered lambs in the synagogues to appease the angry gods. Instead of killing humans, they already killed lambs. And then, like what Tim mentioned, the best way of describing God there later is comparing God to a loving father to his children. And also, why not mother? Because at that time, their society is a patriarchal society, which is the males are considered superior than females. So the males are stronger. The male should be the leader of the society. So at that time, even actually in our
To a
time,
certain extent, even
in our time, we still in the patriarchal stage of society. So that's the best way Jesus can describe God. But of course, that is based on their level of understanding 2,000 years ago. God is like a loving parent, for example, or father during their time.
So it's also important to note, so we see here the evolution of the view of God from this angry judgment of God in the sky, which is actually not limited to the Judeo-Christian view of God. It's also present in many forms of the old religions. it progressed now to a benevolent God in the sky, which is actually an improvement because we know now that God is not angry, God does not judge, God does not is not jealous. So, and with this, we already ascribe positive qualities already, positive, but still human qualities to God, which is a progression in consciousness. So, but if you actually look at some of the teachings of Jesus, like in Luke chapter 17, verse 21, right? Lo here and lo there. The kingdom of God does not come from observation. The kingdom of God is within you. So that is actually a very profound message. The kingdom of God is within you. What does it actually mean? So it actually means that the kingdom of God resides in every one of us. That in actuality, God is not the angry God in the sky. God is not the benevolent God in the sky, the faraway God. But God is a very personal God because God resides within. And if we accept that we are part of God, we are part of the totality of God, we can accept that reality and accept the fundamental truth that Jesus experienced when he said, I and my Father.
Yes. Since Jesus is considered as their teacher or the master at that time, so the master has or the teacher has disciples. Okay. And what do you think is the purpose of the teacher or the master or the disciple? Is it just to have them adore him, to worship him, or to train the disciples to be like him, so that his disciples will also experience what he is teaching, that he and the Father are one. So his main mission is for his disciples to experience their oneness with the Father. Us, we are his disciples, and we must experience our oneness with God. The God, not a physical God, okay, but a God that transcends physicality. Okay? A God that is limitless, transcending. Yeah.
So in summary, this is actually a very profound image because what if God is within you? It actually means that you do not need any intermediary between your relationship with God. You do not need actually an outer priesthood, an outer church, an outer religion to be close to God. You just look within yourself, look within your heart, and find that God resides within you, and you can commune with Him. And I use the word Him here because just um,
for you to understand
the concept, and that communication with the divine within you empowers you that you have to look within for many of the answers that you seek. So many of us seek for answers outside of ourselves when in fact the answer lies within.
Yes. Yes, remember in that passage in Luke, Jesus was talking to the priests at that time. They called them the Pharisees at that time. So Jesus was trying to explain to the priests at that time their idea of God is slightly off. He's trying to explain a better idea of God. So right now, people might say, they're not priests, so why would I believe them? But you see, it's not we are trying to convey a new idea of God. That He is within you. The power to create your reality lies within you, not because of your ego, your separate self, but because you are one with God. And whatever you do with that, with your life energy, that will be your reality. Okay?
So actually, like what the Bible said that God made us in our own image and likeness, many ascribe this message as God looks like us. So that's why
like
the
physical
image
being
of God is this old man in the sky. But what if we see the reality that God is spirit? So that means we are also spirit. And we are made in the image and likeness of God because we are also like God, in that we are pure spirit, that we have this body, but we are not defined by the constraints of the body.
Okay, I'll just add something to that. At that time, they did not have any word for energy, nor the concept of energy. So they used the word spirit. So now we can, I guess we can interchange this word, the spirit, with energy. God is that energy, and we are also that energy. Our spirit is made up of that energy flowing inside of us. So that energy is infinite, okay? But it's up to you what you want to believe in. Do you want to believe this separate mortal self that has no power over your life? Or do you want to believe that you are one with God, and whatever you do, you can achieve you can make your reality or your dreams into reality?
So in like modern times, there are quite a number of views on God. So, like in the movie Star Wars, they ascribe God as the Force.
Force, life force within
So it's also
you, in and around you.
yeah, so that force is within you. You can control it. It's also around you. So that's also a valid expression of what God is. So as the some would ascribe that as the universal mind of the universe. It could also be as the source because God is the source of everything, be it matter, inanimate objects, or living things like us and the
Living
plants
physical
and
things.
animals.
Tim mentioned something about matter. Okay, so Dr. Albert Einstein, his famous equation was E equals mc squared. E is energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So what's the speed of light? It is around 186,000 miles or kilometers per second.
A very large number.
A very large number. So when you square that, it's almost 90 billion kilometers per second. Meaning, if you vibrate matter into that fast, physical matter, if you vibrate it so fast, it will become energy. And when we reverse the equation, let us solve for the mass, the matter, physical matter. Energy equal, mass is equals to energy divided by the speed of light squared. Meaning, if the energy of God, the pure energy of God, if you super slowed it down, it becomes physical matter. So, do you see, guys? Our bodies came from that energy of God. Everything that you see in the whole physical universe came from the vibrations of God, slower to the very lowest thing that it transforms into matter, into separate matters. So God is imbued, the energy of God is within all of everything. Without that energy, we will not exist.
So yes, that's a very profound message. When we say actually that everything is energy, it has been already proven by that equation that E is equal to mc squared, or if you superimpose it, so matter is actually energy divided by the speed of light, which matter is simply vibrational energy that has been lowered in vibration. Uh, so these are the different views of God. So I think there's one more point of the view of God before we can summarize the point. So that's the view of the father and the mother aspect of God. So we know that traditionally, especially in religions, God is ascribed as a man, a male being rather than a female being. So this is due in fact to a very patriarchal society which do not give equal rights to men and women. So in the olden times, women cannot have jobs. They always rely on their husbands. They don't have equal opportunities with men. So this is actually seen in our society, where our society has progressed in such a way that men and women have equal rights and equal opportunities. Men and women can vote, men and women can be presidents, men and women could be CEOs of company. But if you can see, it's only in religion where women have an inferior role, like in the Catholic Church, women are not allowed to be priests, priestess. They cannot be elevated, they have no opportunity to become the Pope simply for the fact that they are women.
It's about to change. It's about time to change that
So
idea.
we are trying to give this idea to the consciousness here in the Philippines that it's time for it to change. That women should have the same opportunity with men in all areas of life, including religion.
So religion is telling us that we should practice what we preach, but in their institution, they're not actually doing it. When it comes to equality of men and women. Actually, before, there are certain time periods before that the society is based on it is a matriarchal society, and God was viewed as the feminine God. There were ancient societies based on that. But somewhere along the road, it became the patriarchal God.
So regardless whether we view God as father or mother, it's incomplete.
Yeah.
Because God is father and God is mother, never one without the other.
Yeah.
So the complete view of God is we recognize both the masculine and the feminine aspects of God, the yin and the yang, in
Alpha and Omega aspect,
the beginning and the end, the expanding and the contracting force of the universe. So God is these two complementary sides which actually helps in creation. They are not separate with each other. They are not in opposition with each other.
but in perfect balance and harmony. Create the physical universe, create life, always in perfect balance. Not one way stronger or the other one is weaker, but in perfect balance.
So I guess this is how we read the evolution of God in this episode. But I want always you to remember that whatever you think God is, whether it is the angry judgmental God, the benevolent God, the God within you, the Father and the Mother aspect of God, God is more. So this is the current view that we are trying to place upon the collective consciousness, but in no way this is the final or the absolute view of what God really is. Because even if we think that God is this, God is actually more.
More transcending.
And because God is actually a transcending God,
How can you know something which is eternally transcending? How can you know
Yes.
everything about someone who is eternally progressing, evolving? You cannot. There's simply no
Yes.
way for the limited human mind to understand.
I actually thought of this while we're discussing is that, we always think that God is perfect, but what is perfect?
What is your definition?
Of perfection.
Based on your definition of perfection.
Yes, so many view God as this perfect being. But
Stagnant.
perfection is
Perfect.
viewed as something stagnant, something that is not growing. So our view of God is a very dynamic view of God, that God is always transcending itself, transcending its creation. And therefore, what God is today is different from what God is tomorrow. Because tomorrow, God would have transcended his current being of today.
So whenever you mention that what God is for you, that will become that is what you will experience, because that is how you see things. Your perception will cloud you as your separate sense of self. That kind of perception will cloud you from seeing God within you and in each one of us. So whatever you believe in, if you believe in a separate God, that will be your experience. That is what you will see in your life. And yeah, maybe for you, that will be that's correct. That will be your reality. You're right. No? That will be your reality.
But we also accept that we are in different, stages in the path, and it is sometimes it's a necessary step that you view God in a certain way that may not be the fullness of God, but for you this is necessary for you to grow, to experience what it is to view God in this certain way. So I want to reiterate, we are saying that in no way that our view of God is something absolute, that it is actually the truth of the view of God, because God is always transcending itself. And when we accept that reality, God is actually more than what we have, the mental images in our mind. So this is actually a graven image. If we seek to place God to confine to a form, a certain, even if there is no form, but a certain image, a mental image in our mind of what God is. So we must always work to try to transcend placing an image of what God is and experience the reality of God through our being rather through our mental capacities.
Yes. So yeah, that's it. Should experience and our experience will differ from each other because we have different levels. We are at the different levels of the path and different understanding. So it will depend on our level.
So I think that's it for this episode. So please subscribe to our channel, Transcending Consciousness, and you can place your comments below if you
have
want
questions. You can ask us
to discuss spiritual topics, what topics you want to discuss, and questions we're willing to answer. And as we start this journey of
transcending
consciousness.